It is your Friday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand, happy to be back for another day. Hope everybody's having a great day out there today. Valentine's Day, in case you've forgotten, this is your reminder. Still time to make it right. Go celebrate. Go do something nice tonight, this weekend, whenever you get the chance. Great show coming up. Not really connected to Valentine's Day other than it is Valentine's Day. Phil Miller from the Star Tribune joins me from Florida, where he is down getting ready to cover Twins spring training. Players have started to report, pitchers and catchers filtering in. First exhibition game a little over a week from now, so they are ramping up. Phil and I will get into the moves the Twins have made this offseason, which aren't much, but do bear a certain amount on their roster. We'll talk about the Twins TV situation and how that will impact their season and what fans can expect. And we'll get into the ownership stuff too, because we might be getting closer to some news on that maybe by opening day. So Phil and I will talk about all those things and more, season outlook, stuff like that in just a little bit. I wrote yesterday about Aaron Rodgers breaking up with the Jets just before Valentine's Day. Sad for Aaron Rodgers. In the context of the Vikings, a couple people reacted to that with emails. We'll get to that at the end of the show. First, though, what I miss, a little basketball, a twofer, two basketball items to jump off from. First, Timberwolves, I don't know what to make of them. They can play down to anybody and they can play up to anybody, which I suppose is probably a decent sign for, hey, whatever you might think of how the season has gone, their playoff prospects might be decent because they do seem to rise up to the level of competition. Just a night after losing to the Bucks, 103-101. Bucks were missing Giannis and they were missing Damian Lillard. Wolves had to play the second of a back-to-back against one of the best teams in the NBA, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They had no Rudy Gobert in this game, in addition to no Julius Randle still, no Dante DiVincenzo, no Mike Conley Jr., a lot of veteran, savvy, skill missing from this game for the Wolves, and Oklahoma State coming in at full strength, more or less. So you had to look at it on its side and say, hey, this is bad news. Wolves have a chance to go into the break on a losing streak, not playing their best basketball, having missed an opportunity to at least get a win against a shorthanded Milwaukee team, and now you got to play Oklahoma City, try to right the ship. Instead, they win by 15, even though Anthony Edwards doesn't shoot all that well, even though X, Y, and Z, even though you couldn't have imagined why the outcome would have turned out that way. They harassed Oklahoma City into a pretty poor shooting night, and they win 116-101. It was a night that gave you a glimpse of the future, the window that they were trying to open up, I do believe, with the Karl Anthony Towns trade, which again, I still maintain was not a terrible basketball trade. It has looked worse because of how good Towns has been for the Knicks this season. But if you look at the big picture, if you look at where the roster sits, you can see the vision. You can see why they were trying to open themselves up, not have to be in the second apron in multiple years, bunch of years in a row that would have hamstrung their ability to add more players in the future. So you look at guys like Jalen Clark, a guy like Terrence Shannon Jr., a rookie who is coming on strong lately. He was terrific again last night. Point guard Rob Dillingham had a pretty good bounce-back game. Luka Garza gave him some good minutes. A lot of guys who were not playing at all 2 or 3 weeks ago who have either by necessity because of injuries or because of their own ascent have moved into the rotation. They really keyed this win. Of course, guys like Naz Reid, guys like Jaden McDaniels had huge impacts on this game, and yes, Ant had his moments as well, including a thunderous dunk over Twin Cities' own Chet Holmgren. But they don't win this game without the young guys, and they don't have the kind of future you would hope they would have without a glimpse of this. You look at next year, 2-3 years down the road when these guys are still young, when they're still fairly inexpensive on, rookie scale contracts or low level contracts, and they're playing heavier, more productive minutes for the Wolves. You can see how this all fits together in the future. So you can see the vision. I think there was a little short-term pain this year, but I'm not writing off this year. 31-25 at the All-Star break. Not where they wanted to be, but you can see where this is headed. You could see coming out of the break a tough schedule. You got a couple more against Oklahoma City. You've got the Lakers. You've got Houston. After that, the last 6 weeks of the schedule, the last 20 or so games, it's relatively easy. It's not an easy game usually in the NBA, but playing bad teams towards the end of the season tends to be a good thing because they have given up all pretense of trying to get into the playoffs. They are playing more for lottery odds than they are for the the right to try to get into a play-in, things like that. So it sets up pretty well for them if they can get healthy, if they can keep playing well out of the break, get some of these guys back, and keep the young guys ascending. You can see where this is going in the future, but you can also see where it is going in the present. Women's basketball, meanwhile, 2 huge games of note last night, one locally, one nationally. Gopher women's basketball team made a massive comeback on the road at a top 10 ranked team, Ohio State. Tied it up improbably in the last minute, rallying from a bunch of points down. Could not finish it off in overtime, though. They lose by 3, 87-84. Good try, good effort. Would have been a huge signature win for them. Instead, it goes into the moral victory column instead of the real victory column. They are lacking those Tier 1 and Tier 2 wins. They are not lacking moral victories after almost beating Ohio State, but would have been nice to put that one in the win column. They could not do it. USC put one in the win column over previously undefeated UCLA. JuJu Watkins was unbelievable last night, stuffing the stat sheet. She had 8 blocked shots. She almost had a triple-double with blocks. An unbelievable game for JuJu Watkins as USC beats UCLA. Gophers lost to both of those teams not too long ago. They are both terrific teams, but UCLA came in undefeated, and JuJu basically didn't beat them by herself, but really was the show in that game, and it was an impressive thing to watch. Let's talk Twins baseball today with Phil Miller from the Star Tribune. I'm jealous of the weather I'm sure you're experiencing down in Florida already, where we're recording on Thursday. Phil, you're telling me they just worked out officially for the first time today. Spring training games start next week. How is it down there? How's the atmosphere? How's the mood so far?
It's good. It's for a team that was so down when they broke up at the end of the season last year. They seem very much up and optimistic and ready to go. So you see it everywhere. People are already oohing and eyeing over Yohan Duran's fastball, and he's lost 25 pounds. It's a very familiar bunch because they made very few changes over the winter, and so it's a lot of friends, seeing each other for the first time. So it's I would say it is. There's a lot less of the getting to know each other that usually goes on the early part of camp.
Well, and it's interesting too. You wrote an early Q&A with manager Rocco Baldelli, and it definitely seems like if anything's going to change, it's got to be it's mostly the vibes and not the personnel. They haven't done a whole lot. You have Rocco talking about I think we have the talent in place. I like this team. So it's a team that needs to change a lot from the end of the year, but isn't changing a lot of who is going to do the changing, I guess is how to put it.
Right, and Rocco won't. He says things are changing, and they did learn last year, and there will be changes, and he doesn't want to detail them yet until the whole team is in camp and he can talk to the players. But I the gist I get, the sense I'm getting is that there's going to be a little more supervision, a little more. This is the Twins way. A little less of, I don't care how you prepare as long as you're ready to go at 7:05 or whatever. I do think they feel like it needs to be a little more organized. So I'm interested to see how that manifests itself. So I don't know if that changes the vibe very much, but I think the Rocco and the coaches will have not exactly an iron fist, but we'll have a little more, maybe a few more rules, let's say.
Did that get messy last year? Is that the young guys? Who are we trying to kind of tighten up on and have some more accountability with?
Yeah, that's a good question. They let the hitting coaches go at the end of the year, and I think they were probably a little. The hitting so disappeared at the end, and I think that they realized that everyone has their own program, and everyone is kind of doing their own thing, and maybe that wasn't, maybe a more top-down approach might help, because I think they felt like. Some guys weren't, I don't want to say they weren't ready, but maybe they were getting ready in a lot of different ways. And, it just kind of all disappeared at the end. It was just so hard for them to score runs down the stretch. They had 150 runs scored in June, and they didn't even make it to 100 in September. So it just shows you how, how the hitting disappeared, and I think they feel like maybe a little more regimented would help.
Now, a lot of people struggled in late August, early September, throughout September. Royce Lewis was certainly one of them. He's a big deal, obviously, this year, getting him going back on the path that he was on, 2023 postseason, start of 2024. What's the sense there? Is there any concern, or is this just a matter of, hey, we got to get Royce comfortable and he's going to be fine, put him at third base and let him go out there and do his thing?
Yeah, and if you remember that his season, he got hurt on opening day,
right,
and missed a lot of time. So I think that's kind of considered a false start. He was one of the biggest perpetrators of the slump at the end. He went through, even though he didn't like to use the word, he went through something he's never gone before as a professional. And I think they're doing everything they can to make Royce comfortable and let his talent flourish, because he's the number one overall pick. And we've seen he has the makings of a star. It just hasn't happened for an extended period yet. So his best position is third base, probably, and it's not like they have a bunch of options that they would rather have there. So it's get Royce comfortable as he can possibly be, and kind of let's see what he can do with completely healthy and playing alongside Carlos Correa.
Over under on innings he plays at second base this season. I'm gonna put the over number. I'm gonna put the number at 1. Does he go over 1 inning at second base this season?
It wouldn't surprise me if that's an interesting number there. Yeah, I guess I might take the under this year. Rocco said he will take some ground balls there occasionally, but the real emphasis is on making him the third baseman, and as good a third baseman as he can possibly be. I do think there will be more infield practice. I think that they want to tighten up a little bit in the infield, and so I guess I would take the under this year. I know that they informed Royce of that decision, even though he kind of prepared all winter is with the possibility that he might be over there some. But it's not make or break for Royce Lewis this year, but they would sure like to see him take a step or two towards the stardom that they expected when they drafted him.
For a long time this offseason, the narrative was the Twins haven't signed anybody. Derek Falvey's like, hey, be patient. We are going to sign some guys. And they have 3 of them in the last week and a half or so, starting with Danny Coulombe, the relief pitcher, lefty. Then they signed Harrison Bader, the outfielder, to kind of bridge the what if Byron Buxton gets hurt gap. And then the signing the other day of Ty France to the $1 million non-guarantee deal, which I thought was a bargain for someone who has a pretty good, at least a track record of playing a lot in the last 4 years and having a couple of good years in there. What do you think of the moves as a whole? How many of these guys contribute this year? How do they fit into the mix?
Well, I'll tell you, I talked to about France. I thought the same thing. Really, just $1 million non-guaranteed. I mean, he does have a roster spot, so he's not a non-roster invitee. But that you're right. That seems quite a pay cut for the guy who made the All-Star team just 3 years ago. And I asked the Twins official. It wasn't Derek Falvey, but I asked a Twins official. It seems like that's a low price and that there are more non-roster guys kind of floating around looking for contracts. And he said to me, people act like this TV thing isn't real, but it's not just us. It's league-wide. There are 20 teams that aren't necessarily cutting their budgets, but are certainly facing revenue cuts from the blow up of the regional TV networks. And, it's kind of why the Twins are, it's not kind of, it's definitely the reason the Twins are holding the line on their payroll. And he just says, you look around the league and there's a lot less willingness to throw money at guys just to get, bench guys and backups and the like.
So I want to get back to that TV point in a minute. So France, he could be a factor at first base. I mean, this is a guy who's I added it up because as I was looking at him, I was like, my gosh, this guy has played a lot. Like he's had over 2,400 plate appearances in the last 4 years total. Average of 616 that makes it. Only 2 Twins have even gone over that total in a single year in the last 4 years. Like Polanco in 2021, Willie Castro last year. So he is used to playing a lot, so he could factor in at first base. You imagine Bader will get 300 or 400 at bats just by way of with the way things work. Coulombe in the kind of lefty relief spot, assuming his elbow is okay. None of these though necessarily change who could be. If I asked you who are your starting 9 on opening day. Not a guarantee that any of, certainly not Coulombe, but not a guarantee that any of these guys are opening day starters. It's kind of the same old crew for that, right?
Well, it is, but Ty France may be the exception.
Sure.
We'll see what kind of spring he has, but I think he comes in now as the leading candidate to be the starting first baseman. And you're right. I read your story and really appreciated the point you were making in it that it's almost kind of random what a lousy season he had, especially last year and even the year before, that a lot of his secondary numbers have kind of held stable from when he was good. So, that's the sort of thing that the Twins pick up on and will try to emphasize, finding ways to correct that. I have heard some talk that they have some ideas about changes he made in his swing that maybe haven't worked out. That's one thing about the Twins. When they sign a new guy, they've got a binder full of ideas and programs and things they want you to that they've evaluated that they want you to work on. Coming into camp before that signing, Jose Miranda in his 81 games at first base in the big leagues were the most on the team. Christian Vazquez is the second most games at first base. So it was the one gaping hole. I do think that Jose Miranda still will get as many chances as he can earn, and I think the same is true for Ty France, that I suspect they'll go with a hot hand, whoever that turns out to be. But, he comes in with a decent reputation at first base, not what they got from Carlos Santana last year, but I think it was a really smart pickup. I think all three of the guys that they signed, it's low wattage, low budget signings, but all three of them do have a role in what they hope this team becomes.
Judging from, I think it was in your story, the quote from Rocco Baldelli about we want him to hit line drives, and judging, I think his fly ball percentage went up last year. Maybe someone along the way told him, you need to hit a few more home runs. I wonder if the swing adjustment is stop trying to lift the ball so much and just be the hitter you were in 2021 and 2022 when you hit 18 home runs one year, I think 20 the other year, but he's never going to be a home run hitter necessarily.
Yeah, and that is a trap. As guys get into their mid-20s and the ball starts going out a little bit, a lot of guys start selling out for it a little bit more, especially in this era of launch angle, and that's what a lot of teams are looking for. I don't know what mechanical changes the Twins are going to suggest, but you're right. That is probably a obvious place to start.
You alluded to the TV thing is real with a lot of teams, not the Dodgers, but a lot of teams cutting payroll. And Twins announced officially just this week the launch of their streaming platform, $20 a month for that. I think $100 for the full season. And you can also buy the whole MLB package for $199, and that gets you all the teams with no blackouts. Is that correct?
That is. I have been a subscriber to that for the past several years. When I have a night off or not on a road trip, I tend to watch the Twins games, and I can recommend. I've watched the last 3 or 4 innings of so many Padre and Mariner and Giants games. It's I'm kind of a baseball junkie that way, but if you're a fan of just baseball in general, $200 for an entire season of basically every game that they don't find. There'll be a handful of games that get hidden on who are their partners, Amazon Prime, I think.
Sure.
But anyway, it's a fun thing to do when the Twins game ends, to look at the baseball scoreboard and say, "Oh, tied in the 7th inning. Let's watch that." Yeah.
So no blackouts now. So we can't complain this year about not having access to the games. There's going to be access to the games for the cord cutters like myself. I got to stop complaining. This is what I wanted. Now there's still people who want it in a traditional delivery, and the kind of the streaming platforms those are on are getting fewer and far between, which I've talked about a lot. But people have kept emailing me like, we don't see this yet we don't see the channel yet on our cable system. We don't know how this is going to work. Are the Twins going to be on cable still? And I've basically assured them yes, but none of that has necessarily been finalized, right? Like your DirecTVs, your Comcasts, things like that.
Right. And the Twins emphasize this all the time, and Twins officials ask us to make sure this is known. If you were able to see the Twins last year, you can see them this year on the same platform. They should be on every cable system, every DirecTV satellite system, all of those. The holdup is that you have to make an agreement with those systems to create, a temporary channel each time there's a game on, because the Twins will only be producing a short post-game show and a very short pregame show for home games. So other than that, these channels will be dark. But MLB is in charge of negotiating this, and they and the Twins are both very confident that that's almost done. So those announcements are coming, and I understand the worry of Twins fans that have cable or satellite, but they insist that we'll have it soon, and they'll be able to announce what channel, and it should, I'd say, it should go smoothly. But nothing about the TV the last 2 or 3 years has gone smoothly.
No, hopefully you're done listening in on bankruptcy proceedings, though, for the time being. You're not going to miss that part of your job, right?
I probably will not. It was interesting to sit in when the Twins were suing, to sit in on the court hearing in Houston and see the attorneys at work. But I'm ready to sit in press boxes, not courtrooms.
What then is there? I mean, the spring training games start next week. What is there to sort out if there's not a ton of turnover, but they still want to obviously have a better 162 game season? What are some of the positional battles or things to watch for in spring training?
Well, there are very few. If Christian Vasquez is going to remain here, it appears he is. He's certainly he's real popular with his teammates, and he's making the rounds in the clubhouse already. Then catcher is settled. We talked about first base, which was the one gaping hole, and it's possible they might try Willie Castro, who seems to be able to do everything else, with a few at-bats there. But Willie's going to be largely the second baseman. So let's see, what battles are there? Well, there is I'm starting to wonder if Brooksley is going to make the team. I think that may come down to whether or not Eddie Julian can recover from just a horrific sophomore season last year. I did not see him batting 200 at the start of last season, and
no.
So those two may well be the battle for second base. There is probably a need for another utility player besides Willie Castro, because I think they would like him to focus more on the infield. But adding Harrison Bader has kind of sewn up the outfield as well. They have too many starting pitchers, maybe, so they're sorting out whether Chris Paddock, whether David Festa, whether Zebby Matthews, who of those sticks behind the big three of Ober and Ryan and Lopez, and Simeon Woods Richardson is probably fairly safe, but a good spring would help him, and even the bullpen is largely sewn up. There are some fringe guys that could break through, and as we all know, the Twins use 30 relievers in a season, so not making the opening day roster doesn't mean much. But you're right. I said to Rocco, I'm having a hard time figuring out what you need to decide coming into camp, and he said, "Yeah, you look around, and weird as it may sound for a team that had such a disappointing finish." They do feel pretty set. And one thing that they definitely feel is that just about everyone on the roster you would project to have a better year this year than last year. Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa were terrific, but missed some time again. So you would project them, hopefully, to stay healthy. And we got Matt Wallner and Trevor Larnach and Ryan Jeffers and, hopefully Eddie Julian. And these are guys, and Royce Lewis, these are guys that you would project with some playing time to develop and be a little better. So they did stand pat, and they are busy making the case now that was a smart thing to do. And we'll know in 6 months.
Is Cole Sands the next Griffin Jacks, or is that too high of a ceiling for Cole Sands?
Well, that's probably a good comparison, but the only reason that you're right, it might be out of reach, is because Griffin Jacks has raised himself to such a high level. Rocco wouldn't commit to Duran or Jacks being his primary ninth inning guy, but those two will get a lot of it. And Cole Sands, you can see the confidence. Boy, you can really see how much more part of the team he feels now. Walking around the clubhouse, he was always kind of the quiet rookie who knew his place, and now he feels like he's established a place on the team. And I think I've heard Pete Mackey describe that confidence as really paying off for Cole Sands. So he says he's throwing harder than ever, and if he's throwing strikes, he's in pretty good shape. I don't imagine he would have much trouble making the team.
Final thought, Phil. This doesn't really impact day-to-day stuff in Florida or once they get back to Minnesota, but the ownership question is going to loom over part or maybe all of this season, depending on how fast the team is sold or approved, things like that. Where do you imagine, is there a timeline scenario that we should kind of be imagining in our heads right now, or is it still too early to suss that out?
No, I think we're 3 months in now. It is. Say this, Allen Company, the law firm that is handling it for the Twins, are good at keeping it out of the news. And a lot of people here have talked about it's this weird topic that hovers over everything. Next year could be so much different.
Sure.
With who's here and who's not and what the expectations are. But the timeline, I was assured at the beginning of this when the Pohlads announced that they were putting the team up for sale. The timeline has always been identify the buyer roughly by opening day so that the MLB can investigate and approve the sale sometime early in the season. I don't think that has changed. I would expect that we very well may know who they're selling to by opening day. That's kind of the assumption we're going on here. I'm keeping my eyes peeled because if you were spending $1.5 billion, wouldn't you want to look around the facility and meet some of the primary players? I think there are a few other candidates that are not public, and so keeping my eyes open. I guess A-Rod and Mark Lohr are out of the running now, right? They got a basketball team to run.
Yeah, Glenn Taylor suddenly has $1.5 billion though, so you never know.
Well, as a Glenn Taylor employee, I'd be all for it.
There you go.
Well, he's a great owner.
Well, we'll see. That again, that will dominate a lot of discussion, but they have done a pretty good job of keeping that under wraps with the obvious, caveat of the one we know about, Ishbia from the Phoenix Suns. That one became public and in a certain way, but that's certainly not the only one who's interested in this team.
Well, I'll tell you one thing: the Twins get quote unquote updates as an organization from how it's going. And I talked to a Twins official who said, we have these meetings once a week about how the ownership thing is going. And I said, so do you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of how it's coming? And he said, not a bit. Nope, don't have any idea.
Do you think maybe he just doesn't want you to ask him anymore?
I have that effect on people, but it does seem like it is. I have to say, I thought it would be more public, given how public the team is. Obviously, although the Pohlads have always been very low key owners, but I would have thought I don't know, if I was spending that kind of money, I would think that I would want to get some momentum behind the sale. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And you don't want to come across as the guy that lost the bidding war. But yeah, I think we're 6 weeks away probably from having a pretty good idea of where this is headed.
Well, if you bump into someone on the backfield whose shoes look a little too nice, it's probably could be someone sniffing around, right?
I tell all the security guards here, if you see Mark Cuban walk down this hallway, give me a call. So
that'd be fun. Let's do that. Well, we'll see.
As someone who would have to cover every time he says something publicly, I guess I better be careful what I ask for here.
He was a great owner with the Mavericks. I think he'd be fun, but I have no idea if he's interested in that.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but yeah.
All right, Phil. Well, appreciate the insights on all these subjects. Enjoy Florida. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, and be well.
Okay, Mike. Good talking to you.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Great stuff from Phil. I will be writing more about the Twins and their TV situation today on StarTribune.com, so check back for that. Let's finish with the cooler, something I wrote about yesterday, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but wrote about Aaron Rodgers, how we've kind of had this idea for 3 or 4 years that at the end of his career he could wind up with the Vikings. Well, he was released by the Jets. They went their separate ways on Thursday. And so now you look at it, and the path is kind of there, right? The Vikings don't have a defined plan at quarterback next year because J.J. McCarthy got hurt last year, because Sam Darnold was terrific in a supporting role, in kind of a one-year role. They could keep Sam. They could go to JJ. They could also look for another bridge, and maybe that guy is somebody who's not on the roster right now. So you squint and you look at it, and you're like, it's the second coming of Brett Favre. Started out in Green Bay, had a Hall of Fame career there, went to the Jets, didn't work out there, and then to the Vikings for the revenge tour against the rest of the NFC North, including his old team, the Packers. But what I wrote about was like, hey, it made sense when they brought Favre in so many years ago, 16 years ago. Doesn't make sense to bring in Aaron Rodgers now, even if we've all been kind of half-jokingly talking about it for a bunch of years. So I bring up, Rodgers has been a divisive figure in the locker room, right? Rodgers doesn't look as good as Favre did at this stage of his career. It doesn't have the same flavor of QB situation for the Vikings now as it did back then. Couple people wrote in, maybe didn't quite get it. Pete says, are you woke, Michael? Just because he's a conservative, you don't want him here? You're an idiot, Y-O-U-R. Thanks, Pete. I didn't mention a single thing about that. Doesn't matter to me in the context of the Vikings. I merely am pointing out that he has been a distraction in the locker room. A lot of leaks, a lot of talks, a lot of appearances in the media. I don't think they want that right now. I don't think they want that version of Aaron Rodgers culture-wise. Doesn't have anything to do with being woke, Pete. Just has to do with a culture that they don't want in their locker room. One more from Dean. Paul Dean says, couldn't access the column about Brett Favre's reboot with Aaron Rodgers. That would be a total dumb bleep move. Are you creatively speculating, or are some people in the know actually suggesting that stupid idea? Aaron Rodgers is so washed up. Is that not obvious to some? That is pretty much what I wrote. Sorry he could not access it. Again, that probably would have required jumping through the paywall. Please, everybody, jump through the paywall for this content. That is how we pay the bills. But thank you, Paul, for writing in, and I guess I've answered your question, at least in this format. That will do it for me today. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Friday. Coming back on Monday with Royce. Until then, have a great weekend, a great Valentine's Day. Back at it again on Monday.